Welcome to Soda City Unleashed, where we decode pet health with some of the best vets in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm Emily White, and I'm your host. Joining us today is Dr. Tracy Schlicksup, who is not only an amazing emergency vet, but one of the co-owners of CVETS. Dr. Tracy, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, Emily. Thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell Columbia all about veterinary medicine and what we can do to help support their pets. So I am one of the co-owners of CVETS. My husband and I, Mike Schlicksup, opened it up in May of 2018. So while starting that, we're also the parents of two fun middle schoolers right now. So life is quite busy.
That's awesome. And where did you go to vet school? Did you grow up here in Columbia? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so Columbia is home for me. So grew up here in Columbia, South Carolina. Always joke that after college, I did the world tour for about 15 years, going to vet school, finishing clinicals and internships, and trained in Philly for about 6 years. That's really a lot of where I started my career in emergency critical care, worked with some wonderful mentors there to grow kind of who I was as a clinician, and then circled back to South Carolina. We were in Charleston for about 6 years, but ultimately landed back in our hometown in Columbia to open up CVETS and help to develop what we can do for pets here and locally.
That's awesome. And one of the things I've learned about veterinary medicine is a vet school that a lot of veterinarians go to is Ross University, which is where you and Dr. Mike met. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Tell me
correct.
about
Yep.
Ross University.
Yep. So Ross University is in St. Kitts. So it is on a Caribbean island, which sounds super fun unless you're looking at the Caribbean island from a library. So, but I do have to say, having the opportunity to finish test week and then go out to the beach for your afternoon off was always a nice option. So Ross University is a school where we train there for the majority of your classroom work and some clinical work, and then come back to the States to finish up a lot of our clinical work. So Mike and I met there really going into second semester. So early on, I always joked that I knew he was somebody to get to know because he was kind of top of the class. You always got to find somebody smart, right? And so we really tackled vet school together, which was a super fun adventure for the both of us. Came back to Raleigh, where we finished some training at NC State. Loved the team there. Wonderful place, wonderful people. They taught us a lot. And after finishing an internship at NC State, we kind of traveled up to Philadelphia, where Mike pursued the training to be a veterinary surgeon, and I went into emergency and critical care.
Is that how you guys kind of knew that? Well, I'm sure when you were in vet school, you weren't like, we're going to open a business together. But when you knew that you could work with him in that way, is that when CVETS was coming, like the early stages of CVETS, is that how you guys kind of knew that, you know, husband and wife, we could do this?
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that. You know, I think when you meet in vet school and you kind of tackle studying and life and test and the stress cycles with that, and then you kind of go on to become a professional in that same style, you know, you start to learn that you have ways that you can support each other, and that relationship becomes mutually beneficial versus something where it's challenging. So really from the get-go, having lived through internships and things together, you know, we found a balance where we both identified the strengths we can bring to the table and help support each other. I always joke, you know, I'm emergency critical care and he's a surgeon, so we can also be kind of the king of our own domain. So it's a nice little balance. You know, I always have fun helping him talk about the critical care pieces, but I also have somebody I can trust I can lean on and talk to about the surgical pieces. So we found a good balance, but not without the work that is needed.
Absolutely. And we were just talking, you guys just celebrated 18 years together. That's incredible.
Yep.
A lot of milestones.
A lot of milestones, a lot of speed bumps, you know, some cliffs, you know, but you know how that goes. I think that, you know, that's what makes life fun, the challenges and when you get to the other side of them. So it's been a lot of adventures along the way. You know, we've lived in a number of different places. That's why we always joke that we can pretty much be planted anywhere and we can make it work. But it was fun to be able to come back to what we call home and be able to really feel like we are serving Columbia and bringing something to the table here that helps to develop and progress veterinary medicine.
Absolutely. And one of the things that always impresses me about you specifically is when you guys started CVETS, you had like two very small children. Yes. And you guys are, you especially, always running around and getting everything done. It's so impressive how one day you're in your scrubs, like actually doing critical care, and then the next day you're in your business casual, like having meetings, and then taking the kids to soccer and hockey and whatnot. How do you do it all?
So my mom is hilarious. So really, she's a linchpin in the plan. When we talked about making this plan and going to open CVETS, we went to her. I think one of the things that you have to identify as a person, especially a person who wants to tackle a lot of things, is it's very important to have a support structure around you that you can trust, that's going to be there for you. And she really helped us kind of feel comfortable that we were going to have somebody to lean on when it came to the family piece, because as a working mom, you want to be a full-time working mom, a full-time mom, and a full-time business owner. There's not 3 full-time people, and so it's one of those things where you want to find individuals around you to leverage them to feel like you can dedicate your whole self to each of those avenues. My mom was a big piece of that. I laugh because early on, when we were just kind of burning the candle at both ends, my mom looked at me and goes, "Do you feel like you're holding a tiger by the tail sometimes?" And I said, "Yeah, and that stuck with me, because you have the days where you feel like you're just hanging on, and then you have the days where you feel like you really nailed it." And I think the big thing is that element of planning and resilience, knowing that plans sometimes don't go the way you want them to, but being resilient to it, brainstorming, knowing the path ahead, and knowing that really it just takes determination.
Gotcha. Well, I'm kind of going off the cuff here, so I apologize. But since we have a co-owner of CVETS with us, will you tell me about CVETS, what the vision was, and kind of what it's come to be, and just let people know about the amazing hospital that you run.
Yeah. So a little bit of the idea was born out of having a little bit of a mindset where you just always want to make things better. We've worked in a number of different hospitals really throughout the Northeast and Southeast, and getting different exposure and experiences, the things people do really well, the things that maybe are not as great, the processes don't work as well. So we wanted to try to create it ourselves. There were kind of twofold main ideas. One was we wanted to grow support teams to feel like veterinary medicine was a career. We didn't want it to be the high school job that I think sometimes a decade ago it was. We wanted it to be something where people can see themselves in the field for, their lifetime, 20 and 30 years. And that was based on the fact that medicine's growing. What we can do is amazing compared to 10 years ago. And that takes a really strong support team. But we also wanted to leverage the compassion for our clients. I think both of us are very big into education, but very big into compassion and communication. Mm-hmm. So just learning and teaching. I love growing people. I love seeing them flourish once they get the tools of communication, once they really get passionate about leaning into loving on individuals when they're in tough spots. And that's really what my attachment to ER is. I think sometimes people get nervous about ER, turn away from ER because it can be hard. It's emotional. It's a roller coaster. But I love the idea of leaning into that compassion and really being there for people when they need it. So the idea that we could kind of control something ourselves and grow it, we really never expected it to change as much as it had, as quickly as it had. I think when we came out of the gate, we really said, okay, this is who we feel like we can be for the Southeast. We can bring all of these new services. We just didn't really expect it to happen in about less than 8 years. So it's come along and really been able to grow, and just every day working towards that high bar that we set, and growing people to really have passion about that mission.
That's awesome. So I think a good example for growing people is there's 2 techs who are graduating vet school this, I guess, in the next month.
Yep.
So one of them I know started out of high school and has been with CVETS and went through the training and is now going to have a full tech license. And she's done that all through CVETS. It's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things is that, contributing to the growth of the profession and helping to grow people in the love that we have for it. So we have 2 graduating this year. We have a doctor coming on staff who started with us as a technician, and then we have a couple more that are currently in vet school. So, being a part of that education cycle is super exciting, and then seeing them grow into the success that they have and their passions, we try to just sneak a little bit of credit for that. Just a tiny piece. A lot's on them.
I think something else people say a lot to Paige and I in marketing when we're bringing people around the hospital, they'll be like, wow, this is like a hospital. And we're like, it's a hospital. Like people don't realize that, like, yes, there's the 24-hour ER. When I first got a dog, I knew CVETS, if there's 3 a.m., that's where I'm bringing my dog. But there's also all the specialties. So we have 3 boarded surgeons, we have 2 boarded oncologists, a radiologist, all of these specialties. It's like a really prestigious thing to work at CVETS and like bring your animal to CVETS. How does that feel as the person who founded it?
That's it feels amazing. It feels great to feel like we can bring things to Columbia. And I do feel that the job and the people we work with are the most amazing part. So it's fun to walk around the building and, be able to talk to people and for people to be happy. I think that's probably one of my favorite times is when I'm, on the day when I have my business casual on, I get to walk around and just check in on people and make sure they're doing okay. And it's fun to see how much of the team has developed, what we can provide. It's fun to have the cases where it takes 4 of those specialties to get it done, because that collaboration, that teamwork is really why we created the facility. So it is one of those things too that we're always looking at how to be better. And so in that way, it feels amazing, it feels wonderful, but it also feels, you feel a responsibility to continue to improve and be better.
Absolutely. Okay, so as veterinarian, emergency vet, tell me, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for people with dogs and cats?
Top 3 pieces of advice. Nutrition. I think nutrition is super important. It's very much overlooked. Food is a love language in my world as well as it is in everyone else's. So good nutrition, balanced nutrition, and it can really help manage a lot of health issues. So starting it really from the beginning of your pet's life and following through. And if you feel like you're not on track, talking with your veterinarian about how you can. So I think that would be the number 1. I think number 2 is kind of knowing your pet. So on the dog side, that's a little bit of knowing who they are, and that's a little bit of their breed and maybe where they came from, what they can do or can't do. Is there, bulldogs don't jog, right? So we always in Columbia, South Carolina, we're coming into the Memorial Day weekend, coming into May, and just knowing the animals that can manage, the heat and the way that the environment changes. So knowing your dog and what their capabilities are and staying kind of in their little sweet spot of where, what will make them successful in terms of activity and locations and places to go. As far as our, we got to always speak to cats, right? Because, cats are not small dogs, but, we do support that they get good health care as well. They're very low maintenance a lot of times, unless you have the one that loves to wake you up at 3:00 in the morning like I do, then they're not so low maintenance. But just knowing that preventative management for them is really important as well. And preventative management can help to avoid a lot of curveballs that you might get from a health standpoint.
Right. I think a lot of like people I know in the South will see cats as like, their outside cat or the cat that adopted them, that kind of thing. And they are like for the most part low maintenance, but you have to continue to get their yearly appointments and their vaccines and make sure that they're okay too, because while they're chill, they're still animals in need of love and care.
Correct. Yep. I love the way you put that.
Thank you. So we're in Columbia. You grew up in Columbia.
Yes.
Columbia area. It's hot.
Yeah. Hot.
Can you explain to me, I was today years old when I learned that heat stroke in animals is not necessarily like it's 95 degrees, your dog may have a heat stroke. Can you explain to me what exactly the conditions for an animal to have a heat stroke or be in that situation?
So that you're exactly right. Certainly we all seem to be cognizant of the August days where it's like a frying pan and, people are not supposed to go outside, so much less the animals. Those times seem to be more obvious in terms of managing pets and heat illness, but we probably see much more of it occur as the season transitions. So I think of it a lot like if someone were to ask me to go out and run a marathon tomorrow, I have not trained for a marathon. marathon. I'm not ready for a marathon. And so when weather changes, animals condition themselves because they don't get rid of heat in the same way people do. They don't, if we are motivating exercise, so we're taking them for a jog or playing a ball, they're just going to do what we ask them to do, right? They're not going to raise their hand and be like, hey, I'm not running this marathon. I am not ready for this marathon. So they're going to try to please us and they're going to overdo it. And so sometimes we have to be conscious of the circumstances in which they could potentially over leverage themselves to make us happy. So those generally are times when the humidity spikes quickly and the temperature changes quickly. So we've all ridden the spring roller coaster in Columbia, right? So, it'll be that beautiful, no humidity, 72 day. And then the next day it's 85 and hot. Right? And on that 85 and hot, if you go on a jog and they are not prepared and it's not the weather that they've been dealing with, their body's just not prepared for it. They can't get rid of heat in the same way because they don't sweat, right? So we have to just be conscious of they need conditioning the way you would need a conditioning if you went on a marathon. So if we're conscious of the transition in weather, we can protect them a lot from having episodes and circumstances that they would more try to do activity to please us and push themselves too hard.
They're just too nice.
They're too nice. They're pleaser pets. I tell people all the time, they want to please you. So sometimes you got to set the boundaries for them.
Right. And what are some signs of that, of them, maybe trying to please you and pushing themselves too hard?
So some things are very subtle. So I tend to say when you are transitioning temperatures and you're doing exercise with your pet, listen to what they're trying to tell you from, cues they may give you. So normally if they drag you down the street on the leash, but then all of a sudden they're walking beside you, or maybe you're having to coax them to walk, or if they want to walk and then sit, those can be cues that they're trying to tell you, hey, maybe we should take a water break. And a lot of times we think that they're just getting distracted or they're thinking about something else or they want to go a different direction, but those can be the subtle cues. Heavy panting, certainly. I think a lot of us are pretty in tune with the panting scenario, and if you feel like they're trying to pant harder and harder, they're just not able to get rid of that heat. But a lot of it is what their engagement with activity. If they have a certain level of engagement most of the time and that starts to decrease, then that's their message.
Gotcha. Something that might not be that big of a deal for you or I could be a big deal for them.
Yes, depending on the activity level, because sometimes they're pushing themselves.
Gotcha.
Pretty hard.
Cool. Okay. So I wanted to ask you like some Columbia specific information. So heat obviously is a big one. What should people know about like pollen and allergies when it comes to their pets?
So we do jokingly say South Carolina's got a lot of that, right? We were all talking about how allergies are the culprit right now of what's going on with all the people. So we do see that in animals as well. Their allergy presentation is much more skin related, so a little different than people. The majority of the time, they're just going to show some itchiness. They'll show sometimes rashes or irritation on their skin. So a lot of what we can manage is really through some routine bathing with gentle shampoos. There are many times when we have significant seasonality allergies that you want to talk to your veterinarian. There's a lot of allergy medications that are not safe for animals. So you want to ensure that you have your veterinarian's recommendation before you give anything over the counter.
Very smart. Interesting. Okay. I think something I've seen, like maybe an allergy pill that has xylitol in it or something like that, because that's not safe for animals, right? Yeah.
So there are a number of medications. Decongestants is probably the primary one. The more human medicine goes towards multi-symptom drugs, the trickier medicating your pet over the counter gets, right? Because maybe they can take one of those medicines but not the other one. Right. So it's really safest if you always get a veterinarian's recommendation.
Always just ask.
Always just ask. Yeah.
Safe to just ask. Okay, so story time. Tell us. So we already talked a little bit about how you have to have balance in your life, right? Mm-hmm. What's like a recent example of maybe you had a pet in the emergency room, but then you also had to like call your mom on your watch to take Maddie to soccer practice because it just wasn't working out? Like, do you run into situations like that a lot where it's just like all at once, and how do you manage that?
So probably every week. So, you can imagine emergency medicine, the end time is a little bit of a moving end point. So, we kind of make a plan for the day and then there's a backup plan for the day. I have lots of good friends that, will a lot of times just let Maddie tag along if we need to. We joke, with the kids because they always say like, why are you last in line for car pickup? And I was like, because I have a job,
Why are you still asking that?
Yeah, exactly. be like, this is the way it's been all along. And then, you know, the other thing they'll joke about, like if I'm inevitably 10 to 15 minutes late because I will be leaving work when they are actually supposed to be picked up. And, you know, with iPhones and all that, everybody has everybody's location. My kids can work this better than I can. They will check my location and call me and say, Mom, you haven't even left work. Like, what are you doing?
We know.
And I'm like, I know, I'm on my way. And they're like, no, you're not. You're still actually at work. And so I just tell them, in my day, I sat on a curb. In your day, you get to play on your cell phone. So I would just say that you're a lucky little girl.
You're very, very fortunate.
Yes.
That's awesome. What is the funniest thing that's happened to you as a veterinarian? I'm talking like, I see videos of, I actually saw a video of a local groomer, and she was drying a dog with like one of those high pressure hair dryers, and an anal gland just decided that was the moment to release.
Yep.
Do you have any crazy stories?
Well, you know, I was saying to you earlier, you know, it's funny. I was like trying to think of all the funny moments. I think that the funniest moments happen in the middle of the night. And I'm sure that's because all of us are functioning on somewhat of sleep deprivation. So everything's funny at night. You know, you always have the anal gland humor. You know, anal glands like to release themselves or hit people in very, you know, uncomfortable places, in the face, on your shirt, you know. So those things are all entertaining in the moment because you have to laugh them off. One of the things that I think is probably one of the funnier things we were talking about earlier is I was talking with a lady who had a challenging experience. You know, she was expressing the fact that she was frustrated, and it's not uncommon. It's a challenging world. And she just made the comment that she felt like Mike was easy on the eyes. And that, you know, it was like left on a high note. You know, all this stuff might not have been gone right, but you know what? That surgeon, he's easy on the eyes. And I said, well, at least that softened the blow a little bit. So sometimes
Does that solve the problem? Okay, yeah sure, why not?
So, you know, I think that it's just taking humor in the challenging times where, you know.
Yeah, take it where you can get it.
Take it where you can get it, exactly.
I wonder how Mike was probably like, okay.
Yeah, and he, you know, he's funny because owners love to like give him a hug, and you know we're in South Carolina, right? So Mike's from Illinois, and so he's getting induced into the Southern ways of life, and so he'll get a client who just wants to give him the thank you kiss on the cheek, and he's leaning into it. And I was like, let's do this, give me a kiss.
I wonder what the first time that was like for him. He was probably like,
what is happening? Yes,
is this inappropriate?
Yeah. So it is take the funny when it's there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love I'll be sitting at my desk working on something, and I'll get a call. And it's like, you need to come down right now. There's a dog with a cowboy hat on.
Yes.
Great. Be there in a second.
Yeah.
And that's not even funny at this point. It's just very like a common occurrence. So
yeah. When I think what is funny about those things is just like, I'm always amazed at how people have the talents and the time. I'm like, the things people can do, you know, are, you know, we can have bandages with decorations. We had a poodle who had rock star hair, like purple,
incredible,
pink. It was a groomer's dog. And yeah, it was like very impressive. I was like, I don't think I could do this if someone said, I want you to give my dog this hairstyle. It was and those are the fun things when you can really see how owners love and engage with their animals and the fun things they do, and just makes it worth it because you know that what you're doing is you're not only treating that pet, you're treating that human animal bond. Absolutely. And that just makes those moments continue. Yeah,
for sure. And you're not just seeing the pets every day. Like you're making those like you just said, those connections with the pets' people too. And they wouldn't be there if they didn't love their pets. And so I'm sure for you guys, it's gratifying to be able to see that and to know that you're helping a whole family.
Yep.
Pets are family members. That's what they are. They're not pets anymore, you know? Pets are the new kids.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, I was in high school working for a great veterinarian, and we were talking about why to get in veterinary medicine and why would you want to do this. You know, it's always animals, right? I've loved animals. I decided this when I was in the first grade, and she looked at me and she goes, you know, every animal comes with an owner, right? And it was like at the moment I was like, I get that. But it's one of those things that, you know, you start to understand, the longer in veterinary medicine as I went through college, it really stuck with me before I even got to vet school to say, the pet parent that's attached to the pet is actually part of who you're treating, right? And that is where a lot of my passion comes from, because to see the combination of the cool pieces of the puzzle of medicine and, fixing a problem and learning that the science piece I love, right? That's what got us into it. But the people piece and getting to see when you're contributing to how that relationship can continue and can grow, and you can be there when a pet parent's dealing with a time that is confusing or challenging because this isn't their world, then you have a role to fill, and it's fun to have purpose.
Absolutely. I'll go into rooms sometimes with doctors to get photos or something, and to hear the way, I'm specifically thinking of Dr. Haviland, who's been with you guys for a really long time, to hear the way she talks to clients and assures them and educates them. And it's beautiful is the word that comes to mind, because she really cares about what she's doing, why they're there, what's happening, and wants to communicate that. And I know you're the same way. And it's that's a whole other piece, because yes, you do the exam, you go through the motions of checking the heartbeat and the vitals and whatnot, but then you also have to sit down and explain all of this to someone too, who like a real person who doesn't understand and just wants the best for. So it is you guys need a minor in human resources or something, like when you're in college, you need to have a people class.
No, there's not enough of them. That's for sure. We definitely need people classes.
Okay. So, from your career, what would you say is one of the more memorable experiences that you've come across? So when I think of, I've been in vet med a year working with your social media, but one of the things that comes to mind for me, if someone asked me this question, obviously I did nothing but listen to the story and take pictures and document it. But I think of Tucker, the Boykin Spaniel, who he ate a sock, came in for a foreign body. He coded and essentially died. And they were able to bring him back to life. He had a moment of and he was alive, and he had a little bit of some brain issues, but he's a happy, healthy dog, and he was actually back not long ago because he ate another sock.
Yes.
So that for me is a really memorable case of Dr. Gregory, our critical care doctor, literally brought this dog back to life. It's so incredible. Is there anything that you can think of that sticks out like that?
It's funny. It doesn't seem to be a solitary moment in my mind, but I'll give you an example. So this week, we have weeks in critical care and ER that are tough, right? Sometimes we don't get the win. This week we had an 10-week-old puppy who came in, who was in a very critical position, did not have a lot of red blood cells, and we were able to 24 hours later save its life. It's walking around, eating, drinking. It's going to be a happy, healthy puppy when it was on the verge of passing away. We have 2 dogs that decided to go into the human medicine cabinet and get into human drugs that unfortunately were supposed to be away from the dogs, but they found them because dogs are very mischievous. And both of those patients came in, and really we weren't sure whether they were going to make it through the night. So in 1 week, there's 3 pets that we had to have conversations with owners about potentially everything that we're going to do may not work, but we're going to give it our all. And today we get to send those pets home. And so I think the memorable piece for me is not a specific moment. It's the additive of, I can take the challenges and the ones we don't win, which, really are the ones that kind of keep you up at night, when you know that because we give our all with every case, they're the ones that get to go home that maybe if they hadn't been in our hands, they wouldn't have. And we can be those people for our clients. And so it's more of the mission memory than I think the actual individual ones. I graduated in 2007, so creeping into quite a long time in it. So I think the moments sometimes can blend, and but the moments that we have where we really know that we're the reason a pet goes back home. And I think the moment where you really make a connection with an owner and you feel like you have met their need no matter what that need is, that to me is the memory that says, hey, this is what I got in it, and this is what makes it worth it.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Okay, so back to some of your personal stuff. Tell me about your animals.
Oh, my animals? Well, I've now moved into crazy lady zone.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I have 3 cats. So, once you go over 2 cats, once you're
Gotcha.
outnumbered by your cats,
You're a cat lady.
you're a cat lady.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
I knew it was within me. So it was expected along the way. I've had some boundaries by my family to not be the
Right.
crazy cat lady, but we're there.
Here we are.
Yeah. And the naked cat pushed us over the edge. So have 2 adopted kitties that landed in my lap for one reason or another. Needed a home, needed a certain type of treatment, and we provided it. And then they ended up at my house. And they're great. That's Snoop and Gizmo. And then we have a little Sphinx cat who a friend of mine had a litter. They needed homes. I ended up somehow deciding this was going to be our new addition. So now we have a cat with no hair named Kenny. And he has pushed us over the edge because we have 5 pets. So that includes the 2 dogs. So we have a rescue kind of lab mix. Again, same story, right? He came into the hospital. He was sick. Someone had found him on the street. We, in theory, were going to adopt him out, but he ended up coming home with me. And then we have our French bulldog, whose name is T-Rex Chompers Schlicksup. So he has a very fancy name, mostly because he screams like a T-Rex. And the kids wanted to name him Chompers because he was a classic bitey puppy. But
right.
he now is addicted to our children. And if they are not in the room, then he will leave the room and go find them, because he loves them the most.
I think one of my favorite Chomper stories is how sometimes you'll be like dropping the kids off at school and realize that he's in the car.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So he doesn't like to be alone or at home. So he would rather just be with you all the time. So sometimes we'll be hustling and bustling. We've already talked about how crazy my life is. So we barely make it to the car with shoes and fully dressed. So we're all in the car halfway to school and someone says, well, Chompers is in the car. Is Chompers going to work, Mom? No, I did not have a plan for that. But he's just learned that in the chaos, no one's paying attention. He'll just go hop in the car.
You can just sneak in.
Yeah. And then
I'm here.
I don't have enough time to take him back home. So he just gets his wish. He comes to work. He sleeps on the couch. He gets loved on by all the admin. And he has accomplished his mission.
He's a good dog.
He is a good dog. He is a good dog. He drives me crazy, but those are the best dogs.
Tell us about how Kenny got the name Kenny.
Yes. I hope Maddie Schlicksup listens to this podcast because she's our almost 14-year-old. So she's our 8th grader, and her like best friends were out to spend the night a year ago, and they came up with some, plan that they were going to try to see if they could make the whole soccer team believe that her best friend had a naked cat named Kenneth. And so they kind of created this whole story, joked with the whole soccer team. They made these like little videos where they would try to pretend to meow like the cat. It was a whole thing that happened last year. I had no idea it happened. It was a big joke with the whole soccer team. So then when we got the cat, she was like, we need to name it Kenneth. Like all my friends wanted it to be named Kenneth. And then she pleaded with Mike and Ford to name the cat Kenneth. So we did a family silent ballot vote, and I was outvoted 3-1. So she will hopefully be president or a lawyer or use those, manipulation skills for good. But
wow.
Yes, she talked the whole family into naming our naked cat Kenneth.
She kind of manifested Kenny.
Yes. It's like, build it, they will come.
Yeah.
What is the movie with I'm gonna totally forget his name, but build it, they will come. And
there you go.
Manifested the naked cat, and now she has a naked cat, and everyone says it was my idea. I was like, it was Maddie's idea a year ago. So
Maddie manifested the naked cat.
Not
named
my fault.
Kenneth.
Not
nicknamed
my fault.
Kenny.
Nicknamed Kenny.
What was the alternative name?
Well, he's a Sphinx, so all the alternatives were like Viking or, Lord of the Ring names.
Gotcha.
He kind of got a villain face. He always looks like he's mad.
He looks a little angry.
Yeah, he looks angry all the
Very
time.
cute, though.
He is very cute, and he loves everybody.
He loves to play.
He
does have
bananas.
a litter mate named Nudicrous.
He does.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Kenneth and Nudicrous.
Yeah.
Hey. Do what you gotta do. Okay, so I have a weird question. And I don't know if you've thought about this at all, but if your 5 animals wrote novels, what would the genres of those novels be?
The genres of those, all 5?
Yeah, let's start with the main players. So Kenneth. What book would Kenneth write?
Ooh. It's just a hard question. Game of Thrones.
Okay. So like a fantasy.
I've never even watched Game of Thrones, but I feel like he would be a player in
kind
that.
Of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Chompers?
Chompers would read more about food. Like, I don't remember Peppa the Pig the way I did but I think Peppa the Pig's the one that eats the jelly toast all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. He's already been hospitalized 5 times for things he ate. So, yeah.
Luckily, he's in your family.
Right. So yeah. That's what, and I'm just constantly taking him up there. Chompers is back.
He's like Stanley Tucci wrote that book, like Everything I Ate in a Year.
Yes. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
that would be Chompers.
What landed Chompers at CVETS?
He's eaten grapes twice. So grapes are a lovely kid snack, but they unfortunately don't remember to pick up their bowl. So he's eaten grapes twice. He ate a bag of Reese's peanut butter cups. I actually think that Gus supported that.
Okay.
So I think Gus got it off the counter, but Chompers is more aggressive and got him out of the way and took advantage of the moment.
Okay.
He got into the food bin twice. So food bloat is something where like they just eat and eat and eat and eat. It's like one of those things where you want to go to, the restaurant and eat the tomahawk steak and you forget to tell yourself you're actually full.
Sure.
Yep, that's Chompers. So he got so full that he was nauseous and painful and was just laying there going, oh. And he had to come to the hospital.
It was his own food that he ate?
He just, the door to the cabinet, he learned how to open.
Okay.
And then the food bin is in the cabinet.
Whatever he wanted, he ate.
So it took a couple times to figure out exactly how it was going down. But now there is a bin inside of a bin inside of a cabinet.
There you go. It's a Chompers proof, everything.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So I don't know that Peppa the Pig's a genre as much as it just is a theme.
I gotcha. What about Gus?
He lives for food. Gus, give me some example genres. Let's make this multiple choice.
Is he like a chill, like romance writer, or is Gus a psychological thriller kind of dog, or maybe Gus is he could be what are those like life-changing books? Not life-changing books, but nonfiction, like how to improve your life.
Like a
things.
Self-help book.
Self-help. Is he none of these things? Is he?
He's none.
How
of
to
these
be
things.
a couch potato?
Yeah, he's a loyalist. We always say that Chompers would not miss us. He would not know. He can love anyone.
Right.
But Gus would be like, where's my family?
I really miss those guys.
I really miss those guys. They're kind of cool.
So he would write like a coming of age novel, maybe.
Yeah.
About his love for his family.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. All right. What about Gizmo? I don't know much about Gizmo.
Yeah, Gizmo is your like quintessential cat.
Okay.
Wants to love on you, wants to be fed, wants to be around.
He'd write this book, Cats of the World.
Yeah, but he's not really going to leverage himself to be mean. He's not going to leverage himself to like just track you down. If you're there, let's hang out.
Yeah.
If you're not, so he'd probably write an autobiography.
Love that.
So he would just be like, this is me.
Okay.
Love me, don't love me. I'm okay with it. But I'm super nice.
Now what about Snoop?
Snoop is all about food too.
And kind of nocturnal, it seems.
Or is that Gizmo? Kenny. Kenny is the new cat has really messed up that world.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep. Yikes. Snoop is he's a lazy cat. He would talk about how to vacation.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because he can go anywhere. Any environment he's okay in.
Just chill.
But he just wants a place to hang out, preferably on a screened-in porch that he can call his catio. That would be ideal.
All right.
So he's more the vacation novel, the beach novel.
You really have a cast of characters
I
at
do.
your home.
Life is entertaining. And the characters don't end with my animals. My family are a bunch of characters too, so that's always fun.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you want everyone to know about CVETS, about you, about your family? No.
No, I appreciate you having me on today. And, my passion is to talk about the loves of my life. And that, that is my work and CVETS and all that we pour into that. I know our goal is just to continue to grow and push the bar and be who we want to be for the community. And then my family and pets are the other passion. So it's just fun to come and get to share those things and get to let the Columbia kind of know who we are and a little more about us. And so I appreciate you inviting me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for employing me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Well, until next time, give your pets an extra pet from us. And thanks for joining us for Soda City Unleashed.